Around 4,000 years ago, the Indus Valley was home to the Harappan civilization, an empire defined by astonishing urban planning. Their cities were built on precise mathematical grids, featuring multi-story brick homes and advanced drainage systems that rival modern infrastructure. But by 1900 BCE, this sprawling society began to empty out. The rivers that fed their crops dried up, international trade ground to a halt, and millions of people abandoned their homes in search of a new lifeline. Far to the north, in the Eurasian steppes, another climate crisis was unfolding. Severe shifts in weather withered the grasslands, forcing nomadic pastoralists, often referred to as Aryans, to migrate eastward in search of fertile ground. By 1500 BCE, they hit the fertile plains of the Punjab region. They brought with them things the subcontinent hadn't seen before: the domesticated horse, high-speed wooden chariots, and a highly structured language called Sanskrit. Instead of taking over the abandoned Harappan brick megacities, these newcomers lived entirely differently. They built a pastoral society, preferring to live directly within nature rather than paving over it. To understand the foundation of modern India, we have to look past the grand ruins of fallen empires. We need to zoom in on the intimate, daily reality of this new Vedic age. A typical early Vedic home was a simple structure, built directly from the earth. Families lived in small huts with walls made of raw mud and roofs woven from dried grass and leaves. They spun their own wool and cotton to weave practical, unadorned clothing. Men typically wore a lower garment called a paradhan, paired with a shawl-like wrap across the chest known as an uttarya. Their diet was what we would call sattvic today, highly nutritious and derived straight from their surroundings. Meals relied heavily on barley, referred to as yav, along with milk, ghee, and wild honey. In this society, there were no coins or markets. Wealth was calculated entirely by cattle. If you wanted to gauge a family's economic status, you simply counted the number of cows they owned. Survival required a tight-knit division of labor. The village operated as a self-sustaining ecosystem, where farmers grew the barley, carpenters built the plows, and potters crafted clay vessels that kept their food safe and water cool. Because every calorie of food and piece of shelter depended directly on the land, this was a society that lived in strict equilibrium with nature. They viewed the environment as a living force to revere, treating the earth with immense respect. The social unit started with the Kul, a large, multi-generational household living under one roof. Several Kuls traced their lineage back to a shared ancient ancestor, forming a gotra. This system functioned as an early genetic safeguard, explicitly barring people of the same gotra from intermarrying. Their social structure, the Varna system, was highly fluid and based on merit. A warrior's child could become a scholar. Women held significant intellectual authority during the early Vedic period. They were highly educated, mastering complex linguistics and authoring sacred texts. Female scholars like Apala personally composed intricate verses that are still preserved in the Rig Veda today. This intellectual equality extended into public life. The female sage Gargi famously challenged the era's most prominent male scholars in open courts, debating the origins of the universe and the nature of the soul. Women also maintained deep personal autonomy. Through a tradition known as Swayamvar, a woman had the absolute right to evaluate suitors and choose her own husband. The rigid caste hierarchies and patriarchal limitations that many associate with ancient India developed much later. This original Vedic society was remarkably fluid and egalitarian, offering social mobility to anyone willing to earn it. Education happened far away from the village. At around 8 years old, children were sent into the forest to live in a gurukul. Without classrooms or books, they learned strict discipline, daily survival skills, and memorized vast oral histories by serving their teachers directly. When these students returned to village life, they participated in one of the world's first proto-democratic structures. Local decisions about agriculture, festivals, and justice were debated and settled by the village panchayat, a council where community consensus ruled. Even as these villages grew and appointed kings, absolute power was impossible. The ruler was constrained by two distinct bodies: the Sabha, a council of elders, and the Samiti, a public assembly. These groups scrutinized decisions, keeping the monarch in check. Thousands of years before modern parliaments convened, Ancient Indian governance was already rooted in public accountability and fierce debate. Over centuries, agricultural success caused populations to boom. By 600 BCE, those scattered, consensus-driven villages had expanded and consolidated into 16 massive warring states, known as the Mahajanapadas. In their early days, the Vedic people gathered around open-air fire rituals called yagnas. They didn't use statues or temples. Instead, they worshipped the raw, elemental forces of water, wind, and fire directly. As society settled and survival became less of a daily struggle, their spiritual focus shifted inward. Sages retreated to the forests to write the Upanishads, moving away from external rituals to ask profound philosophical questions about human consciousness and the nature of the soul. This introspective era paved the way for massive religious evolution. The elemental forces gave way to centralized personal faiths, leading to the rise of prominent deities like Shiva and Vishnu and the widespread teachings of Buddhism. The physical bricks of Harappa eventually crumbled to dust and blew away, but the cultural and philosophical DNA forged by these early Vedic settlers proved entirely indestructible. The Gotra lineage systems, the dietary traditions, and the profound spiritual inquiries that began in simple mud huts 4 millennia ago still form the living, breathing bedrock of modern Indian civilization today.